everyone. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know, my name is Cassie and this is Chelsea. And welcome to our first Partners of Wine, Crime and Wine Time. I don't know. We'll work on catchphrases.
We'll figure out what we're doing first.
Yeah, you know, thanks for bearing with us.
All right, so let's give everybody just a couple of minutes. It's only 9:01. We're way too excited / nervous.
Yes, this will help.
Yes.
Make sure you have wine.
Does everybody have their drink of choice? I know some people don't drink wine.
Maybe a little tequila is also a good one.
I hate that I can see more comments there than here. It's so delayed.
I know. Well,
We're trying to make this work, guys.
let me see. Maybe my phone will be a little bit
Faster?
Yeah. I don't think it is.
Okay, well, it's gonna have to be delayed for a moment,
Yes.
guys. Sorry. That's gonna suck when I'm telling my story and people want to comment.
Ooh.
Oh. See, we just got your comment, Alyssa.
Yes, that sounds good too, though. Strawberry pineapple. I made a cherry pineapple rum wine drink 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and that was really good.
That was really good.
I liked that one.
Hi, Amanda. That's John's cousin Amanda in Florida.
Hello. In Florida. Florida's a trouble state.
It really is.
There's a lot of stories in Florida.
Sorry. Oh, goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's going to be really hard to show our glasses.
I know. We'll take pictures. Well, you posted a picture.
Just of the one that we're giving away.
Oh, okay.
We'll take pictures of these.
Yeah.
So we made Partners in Wine glasses to drink some wine out of tonight. Ooh.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, I'm supposed to drink after.
Yeah. All right, let's go. I'm excited.
All right.
Let's get started.
So we are drinking 19 Crimes, and it's a hard chard. We thought this was a good wine to go with our first live case. Just so exciting. And we also are doing a giveaway for just being a member of our crazy, weird Facebook group that we created. So we made this wine glass, and it says True Crime and Wine, and it has like some bloody fingerprints on it.
I don't know if I can like get any closer.
I know.
Oh, a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
So fun. So we're gonna do a giveaway for this. So we just put every member onto a wheel here, and we're just gonna spin the wheel, and one random person is going to win this, and we'll send it to you free of charge. Yay! To be fair, we did take our husbands out of this, so they can't win that because they don't count.
They don't count.
Spin it.
You spin it.
You spin it.
Okay. I wish you guys. I'm excited. Okay.
Erin Balstek. I don't know who that is, so that's exciting. Congratulations. If she's not on, we'll have to like tag her.
Yeah, so and what we can do too is, Erin, after the video, I'll just shoot you a private message to get your contact information. That way we can send you out the wine glass.
I was just reading Alyssa's comment.
Australia was a prison state. Australia was a prison country. I mean, it was a scary place.
All right. Any other housekeeping things we have to do before we get started?
I don't think so.
All right. So just to give you guys a heads up, we're going to alternate with these cases. So this week or this month's case I picked, and Cassie did not know what it was ahead of time. So her reactions are going to be genuine and crazy. All right, so feel free to, comment and ask questions as I'm going through. We have them up here so that we can see them as well.
Yeah, so I'll be keeping an eye on it, and I'll be like, hold up, and ask a question if anyone has one.
All right, so today we are going to talk about the Powell family and the disappearance of Susan Powell. feel like I should say dun 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 after
I
that.
almost said it. I thought it in my head.
All right. So we're going to start in the year 2000.
Okay.
Susan Cox and Josh Powell were both members of the Church of Latter-day Saints. They were in...
Mormons.
Yes, they were
Okay.
Mormons. They were in some of the same religious groups, and they were kind of acquaintances. They knew each other a little bit. But Josh hosted a dinner party at his house one night, and the two of them really kicked it off.
Okay.
So much so that within 6 months, they were married. Susan was 19 years old, also.
Okay.
Which I got married really young, so I can't say anything about that.
That's true.
But 6 months of knowing this person, they get married. Red flags already.
Yeah.
So the first few years of their marriage was okay. So they were living in Washington. Josh didn't really have a stable job. He was kind of like job hopping, didn't really know what he wanted to do with his life. So they ended up moving in with Josh's dad, Stephen, to help kind of save on expenses.
Okay.
So sounds like a great idea, except that it didn't last very long because Josh's dad, Stephen, is a creep.
Okay.
He was like putting the moves on Susan and even groped her. So Susan brought this up to Josh and was like, hey, this isn't working.
Your
this
dad's
isn't
a
great. But the worst part was Josh just kind of blew it off. He was just like, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So eventually Susan convinces Josh that this is not working out well. Like, let's start fresh. Let's move to a new state, a new town, and just have our own, our own family and our own friends. So they moved to West Valley City, Utah.
Okay.
And things were good. So in 2005, they welcomed their first son, Charlie, which was good. After they had their first son, though, that's when things really started to kind of go downhill. Josh was very controlling. He really didn't like Susan to have friends or talk to anybody. She was still really dedicated to the church, and Josh was not as dedicated to the church, so he wouldn't attend church services with her. He didn't like it when she had friends that would come back from the church to their house. It just wasn't great. So to try and fix this, in 2007, they had in 2007. Whew, I haven't even had a glass of wine yet, guys. In 2007, they had their second baby.
Okay.
Having a baby to save a marriage is never a good idea. So I don't know why people do this, but it's never a good idea. So right after they had their second baby.
What's this baby?
Braden. That's his name. So they
So
have Charlie
two
and
boys.
Braden. Yep.
Okay.
So after they have the second baby, things get worse because now they have even less money, and Josh is still struggling to hold down a job. He's still a disaster.
Stress. Kids are stressful.
Very stressful. So in 2008, they actually filed for bankruptcy, which caused even more strain on this already rocky relationship. During this time, Susan also started to create journals and videotape her life.
Okay, now I've learned that that's super common with Mormons.
Really?
Yes, they're
I thought that
really
was really
into
weird.
journaling.
There was a lot of journaling in this case, and I was like,
Yes.
man, these people are really into their feelings. But
Yes.
now I understand why.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. So she said that she decided to keep track of this stuff so that in case a divorce turned into World War III, she wanted to like have proof that these were the things that were happening, and she wasn't making things up, and this was all what was happening. And actually, one of her journal entries, I have to read you this quote because it really killed me. So she titled their journal entry "For the Family and Friends of Susan," all except
Herself. She's Susan.
yes,
Okay.
but she's like titling it for somebody else to read.
Okay.
And she said, "For family and friends of Susan, all except Josh Powell. I don't trust him. I've been having extreme marital stress for 3 to 4 years now. For mine and my children's safety, I feel the need to have a paper trail. He has threatened to skip the country and told me if we divorce, there will be lawyers. If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one."
Okay, when you start like, not my husband, I don't trust him.
Right.
That's a huge red flag. Like, well, you should be concerned about not trusting your husband.
Right. That is a crazy way to have your journal. Okay. So let's just pause there for a second and let's talk about Josh. So Josh also had a really rough childhood. His parents got divorced when he was real young. It was a really brutal divorce. His dad had a
Megan,
secret note.
Secret note. Everybody go home and leave secret notes so you can just be prepared.
Just in case. So Josh's parents got divorced when he was real young. It was like this crazy disaster of a divorce. In the divorce documents, it came out that like Josh's dad was a porn addict and he had like these crazy secret journals about this lady that was in the community that he was obsessed with. Like to the point where he told his wife, if her husband ever goes missing, we are going to bring her into the family as another wife. Like he had multiple journals about all of his fantasies that he wanted to do with this lady. Like, who the frick does that? Yeah. That's creepy. So also he tried to say that his wife had like taken her religion so seriously that she was now a witch. Oh. I don't know why witches keep coming up lately for me, but they do. Okay. So he was trying to say that like she was now a witch and like turning her children into witches and like doing, just having this really bad influence on her kids. So it got to the point where they asked their children were asked to decide who they want to live with. Which kills me because that is never a good idea to do. Like, you don't ask kids that.
It's just sad.
So the two sons, Michael and Josh, decided that they wanted to live with their dad. So Michael was always like really defensive, like fiercely defensive of his dad. Like anything that his mom said was just like wrong. But Josh, on the other hand, his dad had always really picked on him. Like he was always really violent towards Josh, but not Michael. He would like really target him for like his anger. Like he would just take his anger out on Josh. So they didn't have this great relationship. Yeah. So it was kind of weird that he chose to live there.
Wouldn't he pick mom?
Well, mom had rules because again, she was still, very religious, very church going.
She was a witch.
Right, she was a witch, so she had rules. And like one of those was that he had to be back by 11 p.m. or the doors were going to be locked. And so he didn't want to live by those rules and said no.
11 p.m. is perfectly reasonable for
a teenager. Right?
Kids.
But so Josh was like ended up like becoming really violent. So I think that he was kind of seeing what his dad was doing and really like channeling that himself and like mimicking some of those behaviors. He killed his sister's pet hamster when they were little.
Red flag.
Right? Animal killings of children, never good. But then also he threatened his mom with a knife because she asked him to do the dishes.
I just don't do them. Like, you can just not do them.
Right.
You don't have to whip out a knife.
So yeah, Josh was not great in his childhood. He actually tried to commit suicide when he was like 13 or 14 years old.
Oh, that's super young.
Super young to do that. And like his parents didn't like take that as like a red flag and like they didn't give him any help. They just continued, with their crazy behaviors, and Josh and his dad continued to fight with each other, and Josh moved out when he was like a later teenager. He tried to go to college. He was like bullied in college. Like his first dorm that he got put in with these people that were like trying to convince him to have like sexual acts with other men, and like it was just crazy. So Josh didn't really have a great upbringing, so it kind of makes sense why he is now having a horrible adult life.
Yes, there are red flags everywhere, Megan.
So many red flags. Oh my god. And like, how do you not get your child help if they tried to commit suicide at 13 or 14?
Right.
Like, let's do something about it.
And what is this college?
I didn't write down the name.
Don't go there.
Yeah, but it was like crazy. Like he was put in this dorm with like 3 or 4 of the people, and they had this house party with like 75 people, and they were like, Josh didn't want any part of it, but everybody was like drinking and stuff, and they were like, it's college, you have to experiment, you have to do these things, and he was like, no, and tried to like get transferred, but it took months for him to get transferred out, and he dropped out of college. No. Ugh. All right. So all of that, now that we know kind of Josh's background, let's jump to December of 2009. Okay. So again, they have 2 toddlers now. They're still living in Utah. This is where things really take a crazy turn. Not that it hasn't been crazy already. It gets worse. So on December 6th, Susan went to church. Okay. Fairly normal of her. She asked one of her friends at church to come back to the house with her. So she was trying to crochet one of the boys a blanket, but she had all this yarn and it was like all tangled up, and she just asked her friend Giovanna, which is a weird name. I kind of like it though.
Giovanna, I like it too.
So she asked her to come back to the house and just kind of help her untangle all of this yarn.
What a weird request.
I don't know.
Can you come to my house and help me untangle my yarn? Okay.
Seems like a lot of yarn if you need 2 people to untangle it, but I guess. I don't know. So it was not common for Susan to have people come back to the house because Josh didn't like it. Like, Josh didn't want her to have friends. He wanted nothing. And, like, Giovanna had kind of known Josh from church and knew that he just wasn't really a good guy. You know, he knew that he was, like, she knew he was really controlling. But she was like, okay, yeah, I'll come help you. Like, yeah, that's what friends do. So when she got there, she described the evening as being very awkward. So when she came home, Josh was cooking dinner, which she said was very strange because Josh didn't cook dinner. He didn't do anything around the house at all.
I was also a little surprised, like, okay.
Yeah. And he told her specifically, like, you can come over, but you cannot stay for dinner. I do not have enough food for you.
Okay.
Which I guess if it's an unplanned dinner, okay, that makes sense, right? You didn't expect somebody to come over.
Right.
You don't have enough. But she said, like, the whole time that she was there, like, Josh was, like, trying to insert himself in the conversations and, like, take over and, you know, really wouldn't let Susan have a conversation with Giovanna. And then when it was time to eat, he was, like, very specific about, like, dividing up the food, who got what plate, like, in front of them. And she just said that that was weird to her, but she said maybe that was normal, like, who knows why.
So she was there when they ate dinner?
Yes, she was still untangling the yarn while they sat and ate dinner.
Okay.
So then around 5 p.m., Susan was like, I need to go lay down. I'm not feeling well. She had just recently had a miscarriage, so she was still kind of recovering. Yep. But she was like to the point where she was like, I can't take this. I have to go lay down. And Giovanna was like, that's okay. I'll finish untangling this for a little while. You just go lay down and rest. I got this. So about a half hour later, Josh was like, I'm going to take the kids sledding.
Okay.
So Giovanna was like, okay, I'm going to go then. Like, have fun. So around 5:30, Josh left with the kids to go sledding. So it was a blizzard out. Perfect time to take your kids sledding, right? Snowing, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So.
I can tell by your face that it's going to get good.
Things are getting
like,
crazy.
Really excited.
So one of the neighbors saw Josh return home with the kids around 8:30 that night.
Okay.
So they were sledding for a couple of hours.
Yep.
Had a good time, I guess.
Travel, it makes sense. Yep.
Another neighbor said about around 11 o'clock that night, he went outside to lock up his car for the night. And while he was out there locking up his car, he heard the alarm going off inside the Powell's house. He lived directly next door to them.
Okay, so the neighbor was locking his car,
yes.
And he heard, okay.
And he heard his next door neighbor, the Powell family, the alarm going off inside the garage. And he was like, it's 11 o'clock at night, like, what do I do? Do I call them? Right. Do I try and wake them up? Like, let them know that something's happening? So while he's, like, trying to figure out what to do, the alarm stops. And he was like, okay, problem solved. Going back to bed. You know, goes inside the house and he's done with his night. Oh, God. Just threw the pen at myself. And then one other neighbor had claimed that at some point during the same time frame, she heard a man and a woman arguing.
Okay.
She didn't do anything about it, though. And she will later tell police that she regrets that, not getting up and looking outside to see, like, where it was coming from or what was happening. She just kind of ignored it. She heard it and was like, oh, that kind of sucks, and moved on.
Right. None of my business. I'm going to just...
Right. So lots of, like, nosy neighbors in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people really, like, paying attention to what's going on and, like, specific times.
Right.
Which is pretty crazy because when the family minivan left at 12:30 a.m. that same night, not a single neighbor heard or saw anything.
Oh.
Which is crazy. Like, you would think that all these neighbors who were, like, at 8:30, at 11 o'clock, like, all these things, nobody heard anything. Saw anything, nothing. I don't frequently leave my house at 12:30 a.m. with my kids. I don't know if anybody else does this.
I don't either, but if my neighbor left at 12:30, I would have no idea.
Yeah, true.
I would be sleeping. Yeah.
So where do you think that the family was going at 12:30 a.m. on a snowy blizzard night in Utah?
I'm going to guess that they're skipping town.
That's a good guess.
Thanks.
How about camping?
I didn't guess that.
Right.
Oh.
Josh decided at 12:30 a.m. he was going to take the boys camping on a spontaneous camping trip in the middle of a friggin' blizzard.
Just the boys.
Just the boys. Susan stayed home.
Did anybody see Susan?
Nope. Okay. It gets better. So he drove them 25 miles away to this remote desert called Simpson Springs Campground. Okay, let's be reminded here that it's a blizzard outside. Like, they had sub-zero temperatures that night.
And it's 1 a.m.
It's frigid. Like, what the hell? Why would you do this?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you? But
I
sure.
know. Camping. I can't. Okay, so the next day, the boys' daycare was like starting to worry in the morning because the boys didn't get dropped off at daycare.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried calling Susan, they tried calling Josh, like nobody would answer their phones. And they were really starting to worry. Like, it was very unusual for the kids not to be dropped off at daycare. So they called Josh's mom and his sister. They were both immediately alarmed, and they were like, this is not right. Like, they should be there. We can't get a hold of them. We're going to call the police. So the police went to the Powell family home, and they could not find anybody either. There was nobody home. What they did find in the living room was 2 very large fans blowing on a very large wet spot in the living room carpet. A little suspicious.
Right. You left your fans on while you went camping.
Right. In a blizzard. Don't forget that part.
Sorry.
With your toddlers.
In a blizzard at 1 a.m.
With your toddler children.
With your toddlers.
Okay. So the police were like, there's nobody here. We do see that Susan's cell phone and purse and stuff is here, though. So that's a little weird that nobody's here and those things are left behind.
Yeah.
So they try and contact Josh all day long. And eventually that evening they talk to him. And they're like, hey, you need to come in. Your wife is missing.
Yeah.
Like, he confirmed that she wasn't with him. And they said, okay, you know, she's been reported missing by family now. Can you come in and talk to us?
Yep.
So he goes in and he tells them about this stupid, spontaneous camping trip that he takes the kids on. And the police said that he was very suspicious. He was acting, like, very awkward. He was really nervous. But they were like, all right, well, let's try and, like, confirm your story. We'll go to the campground and we'll take a look around. But because it was a blizzard, you know, everything got covered up by snow. So there was no evidence that they were there camping at all. They asked Charlie, the oldest boy, and he said, yeah, we went camping.
Okay. And he's what, 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he was born in 2005.
He's 4.
Yep. So old enough to be like, yes or no, we went camping.
Yeah.
You know, yes, we went camping. So at this point, the police had really said Josh is a suspect in her disappearance.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where she is. All of her stuff is here. You're now a suspect.
And he's the husband. They're always a suspect.
The husband always did it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to pause for a second.
Okay.
And move back to Josh's dad, Stephen.
Okay.
All right.
The creeper who groped her when they were living together.
Such a creeper. But it gets worse. All right. So Stephen was, as I told you before, a porn addict. He had this belief that women were sex objects and not people. If he wanted something, he took it. Rules did not apply to him. He didn't give a shit. Sorry, I should have warned you guys that we may drop swears in this. Hope that doesn't offend you if you're listening to a true crime.
It's about murder.
Sometimes I try and hold it in, but it's going to slip out, okay? The more I drink here, the more it's going to come out. All right, anyway. So, Stephen.
Yes.
Creeper. He was obsessed with his daughter-in-law, Susan. He had been obsessed with her for a long time.
Did he have a journal about her?
Oh, there's journals. He believed that the flirting was mutual and that they both were in agreement that they wanted each other. Right? So in 2012, he was actually arrested for voyeurism. So he was taking pictures of girls changing in locker rooms and even like in their bedrooms, so like the neighborhood houses. Right? Creeper. While he was in jail, though, police released thousands of pages of police reports that detailed his obsession with Susan. There were videos, there were audios, and there were many, many journals. So disgusting. Okay, so I'm going to read you some quotes from these journals that he wrote about Susan. So every single journal was about Susan. Like no other woman, just about her. So in one of them he said, "What has driven me in the past year is primarily lust. I have never lusted for a woman as I have for Susan. I take chances sometimes to take video clips of her, which I watch regularly. How I would love to kiss those lips."
This is your daughter-in-law.
Right? It's your daughter-in-law. Like, not... disgusting. But it gets better. Don't worry. So he has journals detailing how he would go through Susan's laundry and masturbate with her underwear.
Ew.
To which sometimes was in her presence. She was there when he was doing this.
Yeah, this is why she wanted to move out.
Right? Don't worry. There's more. So he also admitted to slipping a mirror under the bathroom door when she was in there to watch her. The police also found a stash of things that were all labeled with her name on them. And there were things like cotton balls that she had used to like take off nail polish.
Oh my gosh, she's keeping her trash.
Panties of hers in Ziploc bags, toenail clippings, hair clippings, used pads. Like, so disgusting. And he had them all dated and with her name on them. What the frig?
Gross. What does his son have to say about all this? Oh, don't worry about it.
Right? Pretty much. Okay, so during the investigation, Stephen did this ridiculously cringeworthy interview with ABC News. It is so awful, where he like publicly admitted that him and Susan had a relationship and it was mutual.
I don't believe that.
And he said in the interview that they interacted in a lot of sexual ways because Susan enjoys doing that. I enjoy doing that. He even tried convincing her that if he sold his house, they could get married. Like, I'll sell my house and come move closer and we can get married.
She's already married.
Right. To his son.
To your son. Yeah.
And those are your grandchildren. Like, do we not understand that?
This guy's gross.
Right. He's batshit crazy.
Yeah. Also
Clearly.
a little mentally unstable, I think.
Oh my god. I can't even handle him.
Like, when you're collecting used cotton balls and dating them in a bag.
And toenail clippings?
Yeah. Unless you work for the FBI, you've gone too far. It's not okay.
So disgusting. All right. So during the investigation into Susan's disappearance, one of the things that the police also did was they subpoenaed all of Josh's media interviews because they were like, this guy's odd. And he was like doing all these crazy like interviews on Facebook and like just all over the place.
Yeah.
Like he would, if there was a camera in front of him, he would just talk nonstop. He couldn't help himself, which I feel like is also a red flag.
So is Megan.
Right? So many red flags. So there was like a lot of people that were on the fence about him. Like, did he do it? Did he not do it? You know, because he was so in the public eye and like having all these interviews, they were like, maybe he didn't do it. But his next move really changed people's reaction. So on January 2010, less than a year after his wife went missing, he packed up his kids and moved back to Washington and moved in with his dad.
Okay, so like, I don't know, you can kind of maybe get it, like if there's some financial struggles, maybe it's hard to be in the house because you're always like feel like she's not there. You need help raising the kids because you didn't do very much, but that's so far away. How do you find her?
Right, what if she like comes wandering back and you're not there?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So then in February of that year, him and his father created this website called susanpowell.org. The intention was for it to be like a place for people to come to get information and tips. You know, tips and things like that. But it quickly like turned into Josh's family like saying all these really bad things about Susan and like, you know, just basically saying that she was cheating on him and she was like seeing this guy from the church who also went missing the same night that Susan went missing.
Really?
Which was super creepy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. But it really just, this website created this like really hostile environment between Susan's family and Josh's family.
Yeah.
You know, there was like one interview or like at a candle vigil like they had for like her, Susan's dad and Josh's dad like got into a public fight about the stuff that they were posting on this website. Like it was crazy. Ugh. Yeah, I can't even handle it. So finally a judge issues a warrant to search the home where Josh lived now with his father.
It's been, oh, they're going to search the home where he lives now.
Where he moved in.
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay.
Not the family, the house in Utah. So
Yeah.
this is in Washington.
Okay.
And they did this right after Stephen had that cringy interview with ABC. It was literally the day after.
Well, because they're like, excuse me, what did you just say?
Right? They were like, excuse me. So another quote from the Good Morning America thing that really stuck out to the investigators was, Stephen said there was a really disconnect between the Susan who was a faithful, loving wife and the Susan who was a very flirtatious sexual being. The father-in-law, daughter-in-law flirting with each other. Maybe, I can't even read it, maybe sexual touching or whatever. And I enjoyed it, frankly. Susan was a joy to be around in so many ways, not just those ways. So that was what, like, the investigators kind of took as, like, the biggest red flag, and they were like, we need to figure out what's going on in this house.
This guy, though, like, he thinks he's, like, issuing her a compliment. Like, oh, she was a joy to be around in so many ways.
Right. Not just sexual.
Right.
She was great.
Like,
I really liked talking to her.
Stop talking.
And stealing her toenail clippings. It was fantastic. Oh, God. So with that, they took, like, all the computers and hard drives in the house. There was, like, 5 or 6 different computers and, like, hard drives and things backed up. A ridiculous amount of technology in that house. For 2 adults and 2 very small children.
And for 2010.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so very strange. Okay, so at this point, like, the kids are starting to talk a little bit more about what happened. Like, they're obviously seeing that there's all this stuff going on.
Right.
Their mom is not home. You know, the police are involved, and it's just chaos for them. So one time, Charlie had said to a police officer, like, after all this happened, he said, yeah, we went camping at Dinosaur National Park. And so this was new because when they interviewed him originally, he just said, yes, we went camping. He didn't give any details. But now, kind of like as the weeks have gone on, he's providing a little bit more detail.
Yep.
And so what he said was that mom and dad and the little brother were with him when they went camping. And he said that the family took flowers and crystals with them. But when it was time to come home, he said, quote, my mom stayed where the crystals are because it has so much pretty where the crystals grow.
Crystals?
Right? But then, one other time, he also said that mom went, but she was in the trunk. Yep. Mom and dad got out of the car, and mom disappeared.
Oh.
Like, this poor child.
Why you gotta bring your kids?
I know. Ugh. So, because of the investigation on the house and, like, what they took out, the police took out with, like, all of the computers and whatnot, and the things that the kids were starting to say, Josh lost custody of the kids in 2011, and they were placed with Susan's parents.
Good.
So Josh was ordered to have all of these psych evaluations, and he even had to take a polygraph test.
Okay, Steven needs some psych evaluations.
Right.
But, okay.
They should have done them both.
Yeah.
But the judge wanted to be able to give Josh visitation rights, but he wanted to make sure that, you know, Josh was in a place where he could get these. So they haven't released the results for those. The police still kind of kept that information, you know, very close to them, and they didn't release kind of how he did on those. So while the kids are now with Chuck and Judy, so those are Susan's parents, they're really starting to be more comfortable and, like, really providing more details as to what happened. And so one thing that they said, what they were drawing, and they drew a picture of the family minivan, and Josh was driving, and they said, you know, this is dad. And when they said, well, where's mom? They said, well, she's in the trunk. Like, what? These poor children are going to be traumatized.
I know.
And so one other thing that they also said to her parents was that mommy's in the mine. If we go to the mine, we'll find mommy.
Mommy's in the mine. And we have crystals, and I'm picturing, like, a cave with, like, the rock crystals coming out of it.
Well, it was in, like, the middle of nowhere, Utah, like, in a desert.
I've never been to Utah,
it was a blizzard.
That could be there, right?
Right. Okay. So Josh had visitation rights with the kids. They were supervised, though. So there was a social worker who was assigned to the case, and she would do supervised visits with the kids.
Okay.
So we are now at February 5th, 2012.
Okay.
The caseworker is Elizabeth Griffin Hall, and so she had done this many times with the boys and Josh, and had brought them over It was pretty routine for her. But so on this day, the kids jumped out of her car and ran up the driveway ahead of her. So they were just a few steps ahead of her, to the point where when they got to the house, Josh was standing there waiting for them, and he slammed the door in her face once the kids got in the house. He wouldn't let her. So she was like banging on the door and saying, you know, you have to let me in, you have to let me in. And she could hear him saying things to the boys like, oh, I've got a big surprise for you. And then she heard one of the kids crying. So she was like, I don't know what to do. So she went back to her car. Well, while she was at the door, when she heard the kids crying, she all of a sudden started to smell gasoline. So she was like, I don't know what to do, and went back to her car and called 911.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and play a part of the 911 call, if I can make this work. Let's see if it will be loud enough here.
Stalagmites. Yes, those are the rock.
Yes.
One of them is from the ground and one of them is from the top.
All right, you guys have to tell me if you can't hear this, but this 911 call. I went back to her car.
Oh, we're going to have to mute ourselves on here.
So I'm going to try and play a part of the 911 call, if I can make this work. Oh, boy. How do we mute this one? Can you just mute the tab?
Wait.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Man, we both work in friggin' IT. How do we not know how to do this?
Listen, okay, I don't know.
All right. So I'm hoping that you guys can hear this okay.
I can get closer.
Hey, I'm on a supervised visitation for a court-ordered visit, and something really weird has happened. The kids went into the house, and the parent, the biological parent, whose name is Josh Powell, will not let me in the door. What should I do? What's the address? It's 8119, and I think it's 89th. I don't know what the address is.
Can you guys hear that okay? Sorry, I can't see these comments. Make sure that you can. But basically, then she calls and she says, I don't know what to do. Like, he won't let me in the house. And the 911 operator says, okay, what's the address? And so she's like kind of panicking and like doesn't know the exact address, but she's like trying to give it to him.
That's pretty important for me to know.
Okay, you can hear.
I'm sorry, I can't. Just a minute. Let me get in my car and see if I can find it. Nothing like this has ever happened before at these visitations, so I'm really shocked. And I could hear one of the kids crying, but he still wouldn't let me in. Okay, it is one. Oh, just a minute. I have it here.
So meanwhile, the
You
kids are
can't
still in
find
the
me
house.
by GPS? No.
Come on, Elizabeth.
I'm sure she's like trying to go through all of her stuff quickly. Let me see if I can.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It is, I still can't find it.
I keep pausing on accident.
But I think I need help right away. He's on a very short leash with CSHS, and CPS has been involved. And this is the craziest thing. He looked right at me and closed the door. Are you there? Yes, ma'am. I'm just waiting to know where you are. Okay. It's 8119 189th Street, Court East, Puyallup, 98375. And I'd like to pull out of the driveway because I smell gasoline and he won't let me in.
So she's like telling him
You want
everything.
to pull out of the driveway because you smell gasoline, but he won't let you... He won't let me in. He won't let you out of the driveway? He won't let me in the house.
Keep up.
Whose house is it? Kids in the house and he won't let me in. It's a supervised visit. I understand. Whose house is it? Josh Powell. Okay, so you don't live there, right? No, I don't. No, I'm contracted
Isn't
to
this
the state
infuriating?
to provide supervised visitation. I see. Okay. And who is there to exercise the visitation? I am. And the visit is with Josh Powell. And who supervises? And he is the husband that I supervise. So you supervise and you're doing the visit? Yeah, I supervise yourself?
It's mind-blowing.
I supervise myself. I'm the supervisor here. Wait a minute. If it's a supervised visit, you can't supervise yourself.
Oh my
Because
God.
I supervise myself. I'm the supervisor for the supervised visit. Okay, well, aren't you the one making the visit? Or is there another person that you're supervising? No. I'm the supervises. I pick up the kids at their grandparents.
Yes. And then who visits with the children?
Josh Powell.
Okay, so you're supposed to be there to supervise Josh Powell's visit with the children.
Yes, that's correct.
And how did
And he's the husband of missing Susan Powell. This is a high-profile case.
How did he gain access to the children?
He like doesn't understand at all.
I was one step in back of them.
Okay, so they went into the house and then he locked you out.
Yeah.
So it pretty much goes on like this for another few minutes. He hangs up and was like, okay, we'll get somebody out to you as soon as we can. Like there are other
Oh my
high
God.
priority issues. He literally said to her, there are other high priority issues. We'll get somebody there as soon as we can.
There
Like-
are our children in danger, and this guy can't even understand anything.
But I can't even take it. Like he is like literally telling her that this doesn't matter and there are other things that are higher priority. So she eventually calls back after a few minutes and she gets a new 911 operator who understands what the fuck is happening and is like, we will get somebody out there as soon as we can. So she then calls her supervisor at work and tells her supervisor, like, hey, there's something really bad happening here. And while she's on the phone with her supervisor, the house blows up with Josh and both of the children inside.
Oh no.
It took 22 minutes for the cops to arrive, but at that point the house had already blown up with the kids and Josh inside.
So they all died.
Yes. Completely insane. Like if that first 911 operator had just like taken a minute to stop asking stupid freaking questions and just get her some help or like acknowledge that her situation was an emergency and not tell her that it wasn't an emergency.
And I'm sorry, like, who's a visitor? Who cares? There are children locked in a house and I smell gasoline.
Right.
Oh my God.
Just listening to that made me so angry. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to like listen to the full thing. It's like 10 minutes long, but I didn't want to play it for you guys. It just literally makes me crazy.
Oh my God. Oh, so Charlie.
Yes, Charlie and Brayden passed away. It was found out that like a few minutes before the kids arrived with the caseworker, Josh had logged onto his computer and composed some farewell messages to his friends and family. And he basically just like told them like where he keeps his money and how to shut off his utilities. And he like,
What a weird, like, don't forget to turn off the cable.
right. Like if your house blows up, I think your cable's going to be turned off. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but he also said in like one email that he decided to commit suicide because he couldn't live without his boys. He said, quote, "I'm not able to live without my sons and I'm not able to go on anymore. I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt. Goodbye."
But he still gets to see his sons.
Right. I don't know. Okay. So the worst part is though, autopsies were done on the boy's body and they actually died from carbon monoxide poisoning and they had chopping injuries as a secondary cause of death. So Josh had actually attacked the boys with a hatchet, but just enough to knock them down, not enough to kill them.
Oh.
So then as they were laying there with these hatchet wounds, he poured gasoline on them and exploded the house. So it wasn't that he just like killed everybody. He like killed everybody in the most brutal way.
Oh my gosh.
So awful. I wish that it didn't get any crazier, but it still does. So there's actually a book that was written on this case, and I think Megan had said that she has the book. Yes. So in the book, some of the investigation was found out that the boys were actually sexually abused before they were murdered as well. And that they may have been molested by Josh and Stephen when they were living there.
Ugh.
Like these poor kids, as if their mother's disappearance, probably murder, and they were there when it happened, wasn't enough. They have all this extra stuff that has to happen as well.
Where was Stephen when the house blew up?
Great question.
Thank you.
So Stephen actually may have been in jail during this time.
Oh.
Let me look. Hold on a second. Because he was in jail from Yeah, he was in jail.
Okay. So he has an alibi.
Yeah.
Not that, we know Josh did it, but.
Yes, we definitely know that Josh did it. It's so crazy. So a couple of other things came out. Like, after this investigation, really took a turn with the house blowing up and the children dying. More people were kind of releasing information as to, like, crazy things that were happening over the years, which, I'm sorry, if these things are happening, say something when it happens. Don't wait until the person is murdered or dead to be like, oh, this one time, like, why?
This guy was covered in blood and he had a shovel, and I just was like, you know what? He's probably planting beets.
Right. It's fine. It's totally
It's
normal.
fine.
You go camping in a blizzard. So people say that they had suspected Josh of poisoning his wife in October of 2009 was when they, like, first started poisoning her. And so now that, like, these claims had come out, Giovanna had said maybe that's what happened, was that he was poisoning her, and that's why he was very deliberate about who got what meal. And then she didn't feel good, so she went to go lay down and then went missing that night. So a lot of, like, really crazy things. Like, people would say that he would make, like, these organic things for her to drink, but they, like, contained, like, fermented stuff, and, like, he would just put the most random shit inside of them. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And then also really to the extent of, like, how controlling he was really starting to come out after the fact, which, again, these things should be brought up ahead of time. People would say, like, we all loved Susan and we would just tolerate Josh because he comes along. He's part of the package, which is so sad.
I mean, I think it's normal. Like, sometimes you have a friend and they have, like, a boyfriend or a husband and you're like, I don't know about that guy. But it's one thing to be like, oh, he's kind of annoying. And it's another thing to be like, he probably hits her when we're not around.
But we might be poisoning her.
Yeah, that's a whole other level.
So some examples of how controlling he was, or just how much of an awful person he was. So when Susan went into labor with Charlie, he told her that he wasn't driving her to the hospital and that she had to call her parents because he was too busy backing up his hard drive.
What is with this guy and computers?
Right? So then 2 hours later, he went to the hospital. 2 hours later. And he didn't even, like, he just sat down and, like, brought his computer with him and just started working on his computer. Like, didn't even acknowledge the fact that he had a son that was there. And that she had just gone through fucking labor.
I don't have any more red flags because we've thrown them
all out. We should make some and just start throwing them.
That's a good idea. I'll keep it on a string so I can, like, bring it back in and throw it again.
Such a good idea. Can we write that down?
Yes.
We're not going to remember it.
It's on recording.
It's true. But also, like, he ruled the house with such an iron fist. Like, Susan had to ask permission to drive the car. He kept this spreadsheet to track all of their expenses. And, like, he would give her a certain amount of money. And she would have to put all of her expenses into the spreadsheet. And if she went even pennies over, he would, like, yell and berate her. He also, it got to the point where he told her she had to knit her own socks. And that she wasn't allowed to buy any more socks. I mean, I don't know. I crocheted for a little while. Like, yarn's expensive. I don't know how he thinks that not buying socks, like, how is that cheaper?
Right. And, like, it's socks. You can buy, like, 9 in a pack.
Right. I don't understand. Like, that seems like such a strange thing to be like, you can't buy socks anymore. Like,
now I know why she had so much yarn that she had to have somebody help her untangle it.
Now it makes sense. And then also he even got to the point where he was controlling, like, how much the kids ate. And he was quoted saying, like, they eat once at daycare, like, that's enough. Aww. They're just going to shit it out anyway, is what he said. And one of the kids was even diagnosed with malnutrition, Charlie, when he was a year old. So he was very controlling. She wasn't allowed to have a cell phone. Eventually, he made her ride her bicycle to work because she wasn't allowed to use the car. However, he was known to gamble at a local casino. Crazy. Ugh. So, the whole family is absolutely insane, as we know. And hiccups. We just talked about, like, Stephen obviously being batshit crazy.
Crazy.
But they had a brother, Michael, and so when he was growing up, he was actually very intelligent. He really excelled in school, and he, like, was really good at math, and they thought he was, like, going to go places and do, a lot of really great things. In 2013, he jumped off a building and committed suicide.
Oh.
And At first, there wasn't really any ties to the case and him, but Josh actually made him the beneficiary on the insurance policies for him and the children.
Yeah.
Right before all this happened, like weeks before, which is another red flag, like something's gonna happen there. So right before he committed suicide, he was fighting with Susan's parents over the life insurance money that was supposed to go to Josh, Charlie, and Braden for $1.5 million.
Oh boy.
So a pretty good chunk of change.
Yep.
There was also like a whole bunch of controversy with him and like the susanpowell.org page, and he was like claiming he would like go on there and make all these fake posts, and like investigators got involved, and he told them that he knew nothing and that he didn't have anything to do with those. So he was like caught in all these lies.
Yeah.
And he told investigators that he and Josh never talked about Susan's disappearance. Never. Not once.
Come on, like, there's just no way that it doesn't come up. Like, hey, I haven't seen you in a year. Your wife disappeared, but I'm not going to mention it.
We're not going to talk about
We're
that.
not going to talk about it.
Nope. In 2011, the police discovered that Michael had paid to have his broken down car towed to a junkyard 2 weeks after Susan disappeared, which is a little suspicious. So police actually found his car, which is pretty crazy to me that they found it.
Yeah.
And they conducted forensic testing, and a cadaver dog came in and indicated that there was presence of human decomposition in the trunk. However, DNA tests were inconclusive.
Ugh.
Right? The one time you like actually want that. So, I don't know, Utah authorities had a strong hunch that Josh killed his wife and Michael helped him get rid of the body.
Yeah.
But there was never enough evidence or anything to bring charges upon them before they both committed suicide.
You have to wonder if, like, Steven did stuff to them growing up, too.
Right.
Like, molested them or messed them up if he did it to his grandkids.
He was such into, like, sex and all those, like, crazy fantasies and stuff. It definitely makes sense that he did. Speaking of Steven, so he was released from prison in 2017, but in July of the following year, he had heart problems and died. So I don't know, it's pretty crazy that, like, the dad died, Josh died, Michael died, like, all these crazy things happened to this one family.
The whole family is gone.
Yeah.
But we don't know where Susan is.
Right, Susan's body has never been found.
Now, what about her supposed boyfriend from the church?
There was no, like, investigation on that. Like, there was no big case like this was. Like, this made a lot of, like, obviously ABC did an interview and stuff on it, but there was not as much coverage on that case.
Is he still missing, though?
I don't know. I think so. I'll have to dig into that one. That'll be a weekly case, guys.
That kind of makes you wonder if she did run off with him. Like, they both go disappeared at the same time.
But the kids were, like, in the trunk.
If it wasn't for all the trunk stuff and, like, the wet thing on the floor, if he had, if it wasn't for those few little things, the camping in the middle of the night, it would be, like, odd that they're both missing at the same time.
It's super weird.
Unless
he was, like, a member of the church.
Him out, too, because he was mad.
Maybe they all had something to do with it. They took them all out.
But I think the kids would have mentioned another person.
Right.
Unless he didn't do it that night.
At another time. But it's weird that he went missing the same exact night.
It is. That is weird.
I don't know. And they, like, tried to really blow that up on, like, the susanpowell.org page. Like, really play into that, she was a homewrecker and she didn't love Josh and she wasn't devoted to Josh. And
well, maybe if Josh wasn't such a horrible person.
Right?
Like, of course she doesn't love him.
Excuse me, you have to knit your own socks.
Right.
Like,
she's knitting her socks. He's counting her calories, making her ride a bike. Like,
it's crazy.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so that's what I got, guys. That was the disappearance of Susan Powell and the crazy case of poor Charlie and Braden.
Oh. Yes, I'm sad about Charlie and Braden.
I know, those poor kids.
And that 911 operator, like...
Oh, you have to listen to the whole thing because it's seriously infuriating. Like, he has no idea. And, like, I guess he was quoted afterwards saying, like, well, I knew who Josh Powell was, but it just didn't make sense at the time. I'm like, it was a huge case in your area. Like, this had so much media coverage and, like, how when somebody says that name to you and she's like, hey, it's a high-profile case, and you're just like, da-da-da.
I just don't understand how, she's like, I'm here doing visitation, and he's like, well, who's supervising? And she's like, I am. And he's like, you can't supervise your own visitation. You're going to give her a lecture on supervising visitations right now? Like, this is not the time.
That's a good point, Caitlin. I think they meant, like, the way back of the van. like the hatch part. I guess that would
But
be
it's
like a trunk.
interesting that there was the hit with the dogs on Michael's trunk.
Yes.
Because it's like, maybe they did see her in a trunk, a
right.
literal
Maybe they
trunk.
took Michael's car.
Right.
And left the van somewhere.
Or saw like a swap or something, like, hey, I did the deed, but Michael, you need to take her because I have the kids.
Right. Or at 12:30 when none of the neighbors saw anything happening, it could have been that there was another car there.
Right.
You would think with all the snow, though, that they would be able to tell, like, tire marks and stuff. I don't know.
Interesting. Did they ever test the wet spot on the carpet?
I don't think so. I don't think they ever found anything.